I'm Barb Kraft, Director of Admissions in San Francisco, joined here by Quinn Tran. Frequently, my counterpart, Diane Sharp, Director of the Philadelphia program, and I co-present, but she's traveling today for admissions. Our teams work very closely together. We are one program, 2 locations, and one admissions committee because we want to make sure that quality is comparable across the board. In Philadelphia today, we have Taylor, who's on the line, who will be helping to field your questions with Quinn, and Sean, who is managing our technology. Please post your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll get to all the ones that we can live, and those that we don't get to, we certainly will follow up with. Knowing that some of you may need to drop off the call toward the end, up front, I'd like to remind you of our application deadlines, and those are December the 4th for a decision the end of January, and February the 5th for a decision toward the end of March. And this is for our May start. We only admit 1 class per year. So why does Wharton, require standardized tests? Well, the MBA program for executives at the Wharton School is the same as our full-time MBA program, so we must hold to those same high standards. Grades can vary from school to school, whereas like a standardized test does help to provide one uniform piece or assessment of candidates to the application. That said, it is just one piece to the application, and yet it does help us determine if people have what it takes, certainly, to be successful in the program. Also, a standardized test can be a redeeming factor for someone who perhaps didn't do as well as they would have liked undergrad. In some cases, we have applicants who, were an undergrad 20 or more years ago, and this can be a very current indicator. But to do well on a standardized test certainly does take preparation. So, don't just go take any one of these standardized tests cold. You definitely want to put in a little time to prepare. I always think that too, preparing for a standardized test can be a great dress rehearsal for what is to come in an MBA program. It also can be a good test of whether you're really ready to sit down and put in the time necessary that you'll need to put in if you're enrolled in a program. So figuring out which test to take and where you're going to carve out that time is definitely really important. And thinking about what is your learning style? How do you learn best? And this is a good time to approach that. Is it the case where you need to sign up for a test prep course in order to help you stay on track with studying? Do you need to be someplace a certain day of the week and a certain time? I think of it a little bit like exercising. Do you need to go to that exercise class versus are you disciplined enough that you can study on your own? And there are a lot of different resources out there if that's the case. There are resources that you can get from each of the test companies as well as resources online. Or do you need a personal tutor or almost like a personal trainer to keep you on track with your test preparation? Regardless, do put in the time necessary. Don't wait up until the deadline in order to take your standardized test. Give yourself enough time to actually take it again if you need to. And prior to that test day, I recommend that you always do a dry run to the test site. Make the drive there, see how long it takes you, what the traffic patterns are, walk into the building, find the room so that on that particular day, you're not worried about those logistics. Know those rules of the test, what you can bring, what you can't bring. And definitely don't forget your snacks because you'll need some snacks to get through those tests. So what tests do we accept? So there are links on our website to each of the tests. We do accept the GMAT, and that is the long time test for business school education that many people are familiar with. So we accept the GMAT. We also accept the GRE as an option as well. And our full-time program accepts GMAT and GRE. And if you take the GRE, we actually have some tables in which we will use to convert those scores to your GMAT score. The other test that we've been taking now more recently is the EA, or the Executive Assessment. And that is a newer test for us. It is designed for seasoned professionals. So in which case at the Wharton School, we do require 10 years of full-time work experience if you would like to take the EA. Now also I should give you the heads up that with the EA, you can only take it 2 times. So again, you'll want to put in that preparation. With the other tests, you can take those more than twice, but in a perfect world, you love to be one and done. But we do have many students who do take their standardized tests more than one time. Any test score is valid up to 5 years. We do not combine scores, so we will look at your very best test score, and we're going to look at that relative to your transcripts. As I mentioned, there are links on our website to each of those tests. It's always good to really evaluate each one, do some practice problems, and see which one is really the best fit for you. So how do we as an admissions committee use these test results when evaluating applicants? I mentioned previously, it is one piece of the application. We're going to look at your test scores relative to your transcripts, and we want copies of all of your transcripts and academic work. And so for instance, our undergraduate major that may be a liberal arts major, we're going to not see a lot of quant in their background perhaps. So we're going to be looking seriously at those quant scores on the standardized test to make sure that they have the skills and abilities and the basic tools necessary in order to be successful in the program. It also can really help us guide an applicant if they need to take any additional steps. So we will ask for all those official transcripts, and we're going to be looking at those relative to your test scores. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions.
I have years of work experience and a PhD. Do you waive the standardized test given my professional and academic background?
We do not. At the Wharton School, we're very fair and equitable, so we require a standardized test of every one of our applicants, regardless of numbers of years of work experience or how many post-baccalaureate degrees that they have.
Do you put more weight on a particular test section over the others? For example, on the GMAT, the verbal section versus quant versus IR?
That's a great question. We do not. We look at all sections, so don't take these exams and blow off any particular section thinking, oh, they're not going to look at that, because we are going to look at every section, and we're going to be looking for a nice balance in those sections.
Do you require the TOEFL?
Sometimes. We actually require the TOEFL on a case-by-case basis. And if we would like someone to take the TOEFL, we will certainly ask them to. But that's why it's really important to work closely with us throughout the admissions process. There are some candidates that we will ask to please provide TOEFL results.
Do you prefer one test over the others?
We don't. As long as you have that 10 years of work experience, you can take the executive assessment. Any less than that 10 years, you're open to take the GMAT. You'll need to take the GMAT or the GRE.
Can I get feedback on test scores once I get my score report?
Absolutely. In fact, we're happy to provide feedback. What we would ask for, however, is a copy of your test score along with copies of your transcripts and a copy of your resume so that we can be really thoughtful about how we guide you.
Our last question that we have time for is, what if I am scheduled to take my exam shortly after the round deadline? And when is the last day I can take the test?
So we like to have test scores by the application deadline. However, if somebody had an extenuating circumstance, it's real important to stay in close touch with us, and then we would look at that on a case-by-case basis. We also have opportunities for our candidates to schedule a chat with one of our admissions advisors. So if you have particular questions about your candidacy and you still have questions about the program, we encourage you to schedule a one-on-one chat. Also, look at our website. We have a lot of different events coming up in the area, all over actually the country. Shortly, Diane and I will be together in Texas, and we're hitting many different sites. So stay in touch with our website. We also have additional webinars coming up that are very helpful. I always encourage people to subscribe to Knowledge at Wharton, which is our online newsletter. And if you would like to hear some of our faculty, and you get Sirius XM radio, we have Wharton Business Channel on Sirius XM, and it's a great way to hear some of those faculty that are teaching in the program. And lastly, I would just say, please, remain in touch with us, come visit us, feel free to sit in on a class, and if you have any questions whatsoever, do reach out. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we will get to all of the questions. We promise. I know we haven't had an opportunity to answer every single one, and I see that they're still coming in, but we promise you we will get to everyone. Thank you.